From 60 HP of healing every 3 seconds for us and our team, to an overshield after reviving a downed guardian, the Precious Scars has become one of my go-to exotics in endgame activities, especially when paired with something like the Risk Runner and Arc 3.0. I made a video on it a while back, and this has led to some interesting variations from the community. And you all know I love when you build on my dumb ideas because I like bringing them to life in the form of a video. So today I'd like to highlight one of those variations. This one was created by a subscriber that goes by the name Steven. We're gonna call you Steven with a P. I don't know why, it just seems fitting. But this build is all about healing, survivability, team synergy, and creating an astronomical amount of orbs for us and our team through melees and sword kills. I tested it out in a variety of activities, and the results were surprising. I can see this build being an absolute blast to use when paired with something like Star Eater Hunter and Blade Barrage. Kudos to you on this build. The main focus is healing and the team synergy we talked about. This was achieved by a combination of a not so commonly used mod, some very specific weapons, and of course, the Precious Scars. For the abilities, we're using Towering Barricade, Thunderclap, and the Storm Grenade. The Barricade is optional, and I'll come back to this shortly, but the Thunderclap and Storm Grenade are recommended to take full advantage of our two aspects. Touch of Thunder for the roaming thundercloud from Storm Grenades to clean up whole rooms of ads, and Knockout for the extra melee damage and healing. Those two aspects give us 4 fragment slots to play around with. Steven chose Spark of Resistance for the 25% damage resistance while surrounded, Spark of Magnitude for the extended Storm Grenade duration, Spark of Amplitude to create orbs of power when rapidly defeating targets while amplified. This is a big one for the build, so keep that in mind. And Spark of Shock to jolt targets with the Storm Grenade and chain more lightning to nearby enemies. I gotta be honest with you, these fragments didn't really set off any bells in my head or scream this is fantastic until I actually tried it out. The support from this build is great, especially when our fire team builds into utilizing our orbs from Spark of Amplitude. One of my team members was using recuperation without even realizing it, which gave a lot of extra healing. He couldn't figure out why he wasn't dying. But this is only the beginning of the team support and orb generation, all thanks to some spicy mods. On the Precious Scars, we're using Hands-On for super energy for melee kills, Harmonic Siphon to create orbs of power from rapid weapon final blows, and Striking Light to create orbs of power from melee and sword kills, consuming 1 stack of charged light. This mod also acts as a secondary way to gain damage resistance while sprinting, as long as we have another arc mod socketed in as well. In our case, that'd be Hands-On. For the arms, Steven had Focusing Strike twice for a 30% damage reduction in class ability energy when causing damage with a melee, and Reaping Wellmaker to drop Void Elemental Wells after using our class ability, but I left Focusing Strike out for this video in case we need champion mods. Going back to the barricade we talked about earlier, if you're somebody who plays aggressively, or let's be real here, plays like an idiot, you know, like me, then a good alternative to the barricade would be the Thruster class ability. It has a much faster cooldown, which gives us the ability to drop Void Wells more frequently from Reaping Wellmaker. This will make more sense as we progress through the video. On the chest, we're using the typical damage reduction mods like Thermal Shock Plating and Void Resistance, but for the major, we're going all in on the survivability with Well of Tenacity to get a 40% damage reduction when picking up the Void Well we created from Reaping Wellmaker, and this is one of the reasons I recommended the Thruster class ability. Between Well of Tenacity and Striking Light's secondary perk, we end up with a consistent damage reduction. Since we will be creating a lot of orbs with this build, we're going to use Recuperation and Innervation on the legs for extra healing and grenade energy when picking those orbs up. The major mod is Melee Wellmaker to create Arc Wells from Amplified and Thunderclap melees. And for the mark, Steven had Utility Kickstart twice and Elemental Charge to reduce class ability cooldown and become charged with light when picking up Elemental Wells. Elemental Charge is one of the key mods to this build and what feeds the Charged Light mod, Striking Light. Between the Void and Arc Wells from Reaping Wellmaker and Melee Wellmaker, we will always have stacks of Charged Light. Going back to the Barricade versus Thruster one more time, I prefer using artifact mods such as Lightning Strikes twice for the faster grenade cooldowns. That mod requires 7 energy to equip, which leaves us no room for Utility Kickstart. Using the Thruster instead of the Barricade can fix that, but again, this depends on how reckless you are, or if you play like me. When it comes to weapons, we have a few options. Steven with a P recommended the Wish Ender, Midas Reckoning Fusion Rifle with Reservoir Burst, and Hero of Ages with Chain Reaction. He chose these specifically for the crowd clearing capabilities to take full advantage of Harmonic Siphon and Spark of Amplitude, because Reservoir Burst and Chain Reaction have the capability to kill multiple adds at once, which in return will drop a ton of orbs. The Chain Reaction Hero of Ages also utilizes Striking Light for, you guessed it, even more orbs. This is why I said this build would be a monster with teammates to chain supers or Star Eater hunters. The weapons are great choices, but I wanted to open the door up for some champion stopping power by also recommending weapons like the Monte Carlo with anti-barrier rounds to give us even more melee energy, to create more elemental wells from Melee Wellmaker, to create more orbs. Or something like the Trinity Ghoul with Overload Bow. The Chain Lightning will still create orbs of power from the mods and fragments, so we have some great alternatives. This is a very unique build. If you're a team support type of player, then it's definitely worth checking out, and the ease of use makes it that much better. Who doesn't like mowing down adds with the sword and dropping a ton of orbs at the same time for their team? Striking Light is one of those mods that doesn't get enough use in my opinion, so it's good to see some builds with it. It's pretty straightforward. Just run around mowing adds down and mailing, drop elemental wells, and get lots of orbs. That's it. I want to thank Steven with a P for taking the time to post this build in the comments section. This channel was founded on working with all of you, so it's good to see your ideas come to life. I also want to thank everyone for sticking this out with me. I know the videos have been scarce and random lately. I promise I'm almost done with the whole Florida hurricane thing. We will get back to our regular scheduled programming soon enough. I appreciate you so much. Remember to be good to one another, be true to yourself, and have a fantastic day. Thank you!
I don't fucking take smoke, I'm a poker hole through you, choking's overdue. Come at me and you won't get any older, dude, crack your holder too. Heating up inside of me, blood so violently, thanks for trying me. Now it's finally time to see how this rivalry becomes a dynasty.